Hello and welcome to the Evo India YouTube channel, and what I have with me today is the latest addition to the Ather 450 series. Now this here is a result of a lot of feedback from either existing Ather 450X customers or prospective buyers. The whole point of this scooter is to make it more accessible and also one that is just about enough for your daily city runs. And to that end, this has a slightly smaller battery and it also comes in at 1.3 lakh rupees ex-showroom, making it the gateway to the Ather world. Right, so the first thing that you'd probably notice is that this looks pretty much identical to the 450X. That's because it primarily is. It has the same design, the same bodywork, all of that, the same color schemes as well, and it also uses the same chassis setup, and that is a good thing because we've always liked the Ather for the way it rides, handles, and also the fact that it is the performance benchmark in this segment. And to that end, everything else is the same. You get the same wheel setup, you get the same frame, the same bodywork, all of that. What is different, however, is the motor. Now the motor, it is rated for slightly less output, 1 kilowatt lesser than the Ather 450X. So this makes around 5.4 kilowatt hour power, or if you're looking for that in a BHP figure, that is around 7.2 BHP. And the battery itself is also downsized to a 2.9 kilowatt hour battery, down from 3.7 that you find on the standard Ather 450X. Now the reason for that is most people are not really using the Ather for long distance riding. What they want is something they can primarily ride in the city and just get about their daily lives doing so. And to that end, that is exactly why this 2.9 kilowatt hour battery makes a lot of sense. A, with the reducing FAME subsidies, it allows them to keep the cost slightly lower, making it a little more accessible than the 450X. And at the same time, you're also still getting an IDC claimed range of around 115 kilometers on a full charge. Now, Ather's claimed figures have been really close to what you can actually get out of them in the real world. So getting around 90-95 kilometers on a single charge riding economically shouldn't be an issue. Now, a few other changes that Ather has made in the drivetrain setup. The step down in power also means that this doesn't get the warp mode, which is another thing that they got from a lot of feedback because not many people are actually using the warp mode through and through. It's very rarely that they'll be going into that mode, and for those customers this makes perfect sense. You have the same smart eco mode, you have the ride mode, and you also have the sport mode. Now another thing that Ather has done is in eco and ride, they have made the power delivery a lot more linear. So one thing we liked about the Ather was that it had that initial snappy response that they have tried to sort of dialed out and made it a much more linear experience, feeling more at par with something like an ICE scooter. So you get the same 90 km/h top speed that is claimed by Ather, and that is the same as the 450X as well. The only difference is how rapidly it will get to that top speed. Now the difference isn't night and day, but it is noticeable if you have spent considerable amounts of time with the Ather 450X, but by no means would I call this a slow scooter. This still feels at par with something like a 125cc scooter, and that's exactly the segment that Ather is trying to capitalize on with this. So according to them, the 450X sits somewhere in the 150 to 160cc sporty scooter segment, whereas this 450S is targeted more towards the 125cc ICE scooter buyer. So exactly why you have all those differences in spec. Now another thing that Ather has done is launched a new 450X variant which gets the same 2.9 kilowatt hour battery. So you get all the bells and whistles from the X, the same speed, the same warp mode, but in a smaller battery capacity, which also does help get the price down a little, especially now that the FAME 2 incentive. But what Ather has done, which is a good thing, is that they've left warp mode untouched. So you still get that same manic throttle response every time you get into warp mode. Now like I said, this doesn't get warp mode, and for most buyers that shouldn't be an issue at all. Right, now the next thing differentiating the 450S from the X series, apart from the step down in power and the smaller battery, is the instrument cluster. Now this doesn't use the same TFT LCD screen that the Ather 450X gets, but this still does have a 7-inch unit, but now this is a negatively lit LCD unit. But now before you think that that's a bad thing, wait a minute. This is quite a well-engineered piece of tech. Now what they've done is try to get the same experience that you get from the Ather 450X, barring a few features down into this package. Now this allows them to keep costs low, but at the same time you have a unique little package over here. Now if you know an LCD screen, they usually have the, like you have your calculators, you have those digits that are formed by either 14 different elements, but what Ather has done has made those same elements but made it with 18 elements. What that allows them to do is make the numbers and the text look a lot more natural. And to that end, they have done a great job at doing so. Even under harsh sunlight, you can clearly see everything that you need to see, and that's a good thing. Now, this isn't a touchscreen, so to allow you to interface with this, you have this new joystick. Now, the joystick goes 4 ways. You can toggle through all the different modes, and the overall switchgear, in fact, has been revised. It does feel a lot more premium now, and the same, like I said, will reflect on the 450X also. So you will be getting this joystick and the updated switchgear on the 450X series as well, in both the 2.9 and the 3.7 kilowatt-hour battery capacity setup. Now, in the revamping of the switchgear, you also have this reverse button that is a single click, so you don't need a long press to cycle through the reverse button. Single click with the brake on and you're in reverse, single click, you're back to your regular riding mode. So that is a lot more convenient. Now, in terms of this instrument cluster itself, like I said, it's clear to read and it has that 18-bit element for each letter, so everything is a lot easier to read. It doesn't look unnatural or it doesn't look outdated by any means. Now, just because this is negatively lit LCD screen, Ather didn't want to skimp out and not give you navigation. Now, you don't get the same phone style navigation that you do with Google Maps as you do on the Ather 450X. What you do get is turn-by-turn navigation, but Ather does realize that turn-by-turn navigation is not the best option, especially how it is implemented in most other scooters and bikes. What they're using is using the same display to use turn-by-turn navigation, but it is a little more engaging and involving, and especially with India's road networks being the way they are, there are so many roads going in different directions, it's a little hard to tell which left to take when you're doing turn-by-turn navigation. So what this hopes to do is exactly direct you to the right direction. Now, our time riding this wasn't as long as I would have liked to properly put this feature to the test, but from my initial impressions, it does seem like a much better alternative than the other turn-by-turn navigation systems. Now, this is heavily dependent on your phone, and there's an app that allows you to configure everything. You can send maps right from your phone up there. You don't need to worry about toggling things over here. So that is the navigation bit, but there are a few other bits as well. Now, Ather, to help improve the range and to make the riding experience feel a little more at par with something like an internal combustion engine, has added something that is called coasting regen. So what that means is, as soon as you start coasting and let off the throttle, it will engage the regenerative system, and it does mimic engine braking to a vast extent. How much this will impact is something we'll have to find out in the real world when we're road testing the scooter, so stay tuned for that. But apart from that, some other features include theft alert, which is something that is, if the scooter is locked and someone tries to drag it, the lights will start flashing, so it should ideally scare them away. And another thing is this drop protection feature. So in the case of an accident, if you do drop the scooter, many people instinctively go and grab the throttle to pick the bike up, but in doing so, what will happen is they might accelerate, and that will just cause more harm than anything else. So what Ather does is, as soon as it detects that the scooter has fallen, it will just cut off the motor, so no matter what you do, it won't start again unless you actually start the scooter as you would otherwise. So those small features are all that is new on this Ather, and all of these features will be reflecting in the other models as well. Now, the updated 3.7 kilowatt-hour model will be launching in October, which gets all these features, the new throttle maps and all of that. But as of right now, as of watching this video, you can book this, the 450S or the 450X with the 2.9 kilowatt-hour battery. So, has Ather done a good enough job differentiating this S variant from the X variants? In my opinion, yes, they have, and they've done so in a really smart way, because they have retained everything that we love about the X. You get this sharp styling, which is identical to that of the X. You get the same identical chassis setup, which means you get the same ride and handling, and especially for an enthusiast, that is what you want when you're going for an Ather. But what you do get is a slightly more consolidated package, in a sense that you get exactly what you need. That is exactly what Ather was going for. They wanted to give the customer a choice. When they had just the X, certain features were not always appealing to all customers, and they thought they were forcing customers to get just that because there was nothing else to go for. But now with this, the customer has a choice to choose from whether or not they want the fastest Ather or whether or not they want the most range. And to that end, they've done a good job, because this, it gets just the right amount of range for riding in the city, and if you want, you still get the X with the 3.7 kilowatt-hour battery pack. And at this rupees 1.3 lakh ex-showroom price tag, it is a little easier to get into the Ather world now, what with the FAME 2 subsidies changing changing so drastically. So if you're not really looking to go for especially long rides with your Ather and you just want it to be a daily runabout and you're not really keen on getting all the performance from the warp mode, this makes perfect sense.